What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso, joined as always by Connor Rogers. Yes, it's post-game therapy again. The New York Jets lost in repeatable, predictable, we've seen this movie before, fashion, 28-27 to the Colts. Did their defense allow a game-winning drive with minimal resistance? Yes. Did the Colts run right at Michael Clemens to end the game? Yes. Did their game-winning drive have no timeouts because they burned their timeouts? And did Rodgers get sacked and fumbled on basically all four plays? Yes. The Jets are 3-8, and in the midst of what I would say is potentially the worst season in their entire drought. Fun times. CR, glad we got to finally record, after a 1:00 game. How you doing? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. This is the find a way to lose Jets. Like, really, that's what they are. In the drought, there's been a lot of just bad teams where you get on the pod after and you'd be like, hey, the Jets they're the worst product on the field. And for all accounts, whether it's roster, coaching, that like you kind of were never surprised by things. These Jets, I don't want to say they find a way to surprise you because I didn't think that I was one of the few people left. I've been wrong about the Jets plenty this year. I did not think they were winning this game. I was legitimately floored that you could get the Colts with 4 points in this game, but the Jets should have won this game. That's what's amazing about it. In theory, the spread was not that outlandish from Vegas when you factor in that the Colts had to go down and score a touchdown to win. There's so much to unpack here with this one, which is kind of rare for a Jets game at this point. A lot of our discussions have been big picture. Yeah, but this is today. The rare game where you're like, oh, there's a lot going on with this game. You look at week 1 against the Niners. That was always a tough draw. The travel, the opponent, and the Jets weren't good in that game, especially defensively, but they weren't embarrassing. Levis put it on a platter for them, and they took advantage of it week 2. They smoked the Patriots in week 3. They found a way to lose against the Broncos in a lot of different ways, but notably the missed field goal at the end. They found a way to lose to the Vikings in London. I always think of missing Garrett Wilson on that wide open double move on the last drive. They found a way to lose to the Bills for first place with 2 missed field goals. And also the holding on Tyron Smith on the Braylon Allen touchdown, Brees not finishing the long run. Like, they found a way to lose that game. They found a way to completely have the Steelers game flip the script in a game they were in complete control of. And then before the half, they lay an absolute stinker and get eventually blown out, which is remarkable considering how that game started. They found a way to lose to an awful New England team who, let's be real, the Jets are awful too right now, 25-22. They beat the Texans. They got blown out by the Cardinals, and they absolutely found another way to lose against the Colts where, it's such a weird scenario, right, Joe? Because I feel like there'll be some people, and I'm usually in this club, but I'm not today, that look at this and go, man, you know what? This Jets team probably has to go for it on 4th down at the end there rather than taking the 3 points because of how bad this defense has been in big spots this year. But the reality is, Ulbrich is the head coach of the team. That's his unit. 3 points against Anthony Richardson's Colts should be enough that, okay, now they need to get a touchdown. And what did the Jets do right out of the gate on the drive is allow an explosive vertical play down the field in inexplicable fashion, whether responsible on the coverage or not. And it feels like there's a chance that he wasn't necessarily the main culprit, but Sauce Gardner points the finger at someone.
You called it.
Else.
You've been calling this for weeks.
I've been on furious about this, and it's literally how the game ended today, essentially. So this is who the Jets are. This is this rendition of the Jets. They need a total makeover in the offseason, and there's going to be a lot of combos around what that ultimately is or isn't. But this season is over, and if you had any kind of hope going into today, you needed a win today. And the Jets should have had it. It felt like they were flying around in the second half. Like, this wasn't a game where I'm like, they had no energy. They were flying around the second half. A lot of guys played really good today. Really good. Left it all out there. But at the end of the day, they are not smart on defense. They are not prepared. They play horrible situational football. And on a day where their offense and special teams did everything to win, the defense found a way to do everything to lose.
Yeah. I mean, this is a game, right? They come out, they go down 13-0, like before you turn your head and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be like the Cardinals game. And then something clicked like halfway through the second quarter where
we have Breece Hall.
Yeah. Oh my God, Breece Hall is pretty damn good. Maybe, like we said all summer, he should be the centerpiece of the offense. Not Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall. And he has these plays where you check it down to him, and it's like he's playing against little kids, and he just like weaves in and out and scores like a 30-yard touchdown to check down. And you're like, wow, maybe this guy, like, when is the last time Breece Hall's gotten 20 carries in a game? He didn't get 20 carries today. Didn't get 20 carries last week. It's 15 carries, 13 carries, 12 carries. So fine, it's 13-7. And the Jets seem like they're taking control of this game. Because again, Breece Hall cannot be stopped. They're running pitch. They're finally getting their toss to work. They're up 24-16 in this game. 24-16. And looks like Vegas is right. It looks like they're going to win and cover. And like the defense always does, when they get a hint of a cushion, they take their foot off the gas and melt like a candle. It's a weak secondary across the board. It's a weak defensive line across the board. And look, they should have went for it, but I understand how many times has the Jets got a 3rd and 2 or 4th and 2 this year? What was the play they were going to do? Hand it to Braylon Allen for a 1-yard loss?
They're
have Rodgers
do
the play action and roll out and throw it up and hope, like, the way Rodgers was terrible today. He's playing the entire game within a 5-yard horizontal box. There is nothing down the field at all. He is a guy who looks like he is trying to protect his completion percentage and not throw interceptions. He has Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. And Devontae was pretty good today running after the catch.
He was.
All they throw is speed outs and quick slants. There is nothing vertically attacking down the field. You have to do that in today's NFL, especially if your quarterback can't hurt you with his legs. You need to be either able to create with your legs or attack down the field to draw penalties and put pressure on a defense. It's amazing that Breece was still able to do what he was able to do today with the passing offense the Jets are running, which is insanely one-dimensional and predictable. They still should have went for it because this defense is just so easy to coach against, right? They refuse to stop playing Michael Clemens. This is not a hindsight thing. We've been talking about this since May. He cannot play. They're trying to put him in the JFM role. He's the worst starter defensively in the NFL. He cannot set the edge. If you have a mobile quarterback, you're going to seek him out and you're going to run right at him every time. And that's exactly how the Colts won the game.
Right.
Anyone who's been watching the Jets knew that was coming. And then on the back end, they're stubborn with their zone look and they can't communicate. Every game they have multiple miscommunications. If you're playing zone, your corners and safeties need to be able to hand off coverage. The Jets have a rotating door at safety. Their best safety is the guy they signed off the waiver wire 5 weeks ago. And they're unsurprisingly have communication errors. And with Sauce, you've been pointing to this all year. Sauce, why we're harder on him is Sauce's first team All-Pro. He is supposed to be the best player on the team coming into this year, arguably. One of the best players in the NFL. I don't care if it's not your responsibility. Great players in big moments adjust off of the play or the call to make a play. You know who your safety is. You've played on the team this year. This has happened multiple times. You know the receiver well. You played college football with him. You know the quarterback well. Don't hand him off to air. Turn around, have some field awareness, see that there's no safety there. Give up the pass underneath if you leave your zone for 12 yards. Don't give up the 40-yard pass. Revis, Cromartie, even our guy Aaron Glenn that we've been talking about. Good corners through Jets history. Good corners in the NFL. Surtain, anyone you want to name. There's field awareness and there's game awareness. It's make a play when structure breaks down. Stay on Pierce's hip, hope Richardson underthrows it, and win the game. And he did not come up big late against the Pats when they threw to Butte on him, and he did it again here. And it's one thing if he's just like a guy, if it's like Antonio Allen playing corner in 2014, he wants to be the highest paid corner in the NFL, so the standard's higher. And yes, I blame him for it. I don't care if by the book it's on Oliver, who is a street free agent who's playing out of position. Try something different, man. And I think it's like there's a hesitancy there because it's a lack of confidence that, well, if I run with him and I don't make the play, oh man, then I blew it again. And it's like, it's just so predictable with how they lost this game. And it's frustrating because, like you said, I thought Quinton was great today. I thought Breece was great today. A lot of people are, and I get with where the Jets are in their like rebuild, like you can't play Breece, you can't pay a running back. Like he's not going to be part of whatever comes next. I just think like there's such a unique talent there and it's been so far from tapped. It's like, also, I like Braylon Allen, but is he even on the team anymore? Is he ready to become like a lead running back? So a lot of thoughts all over the place there. But this again was like a game they probably should have won. Now they made a 58-yard field goal, which is a miracle. The rest of their special teams remains an abomination because Gibson's bad, Nerve Charles is bad. I can only say it 1,000 times. But the two main things that stuck with me again today were the quarterback is cooked, like absolutely cooked, and bad. Has the worst energy after every drive. The chin strap right to the sideline, right to the bench, head down, totally checked out. That trickles down to the other side of the ball to Sauce and the rest of the group, and that's what losers do. They lose close games. The Jets have lost a ton of close games. Rodgers, I blame the defense more than Rodgers today, ultimately at the end, but Rodgers had the ball, and I'm going to shut up after this. Rodgers had the ball in his hand against Denver. They lost. Rodgers had the ball in his hand against Minnesota. They lost. They had the ball in his hand against Buffalo. They lost. And he had the ball in his hand in this game, and they lost. What have a replacement level quarterback in there, you get the exact same thing. I don't care if he's better than Zach Wilson or his statistics look good. That's not what you brought him in here for. So, man, it's at least it's over, right? There's no gray area. It's over. Like you got to flush the whole goddamn thing.
Finally, the pain can go away. I'll get to Rodgers in a second. I guess I'll put a bow on the Sauce thing. I know that these situations are always tough to discuss in real time because I heard Sauce in the presser. I thought he said Palms coverage. I was trying to listen very intently today. So, I mean, in that scenario, I think what they're trying to say is that it's probably a form of, a cloud coverage for them where the only defense for him, if there is one, is that, and once again, I'm not defending him. I'm just trying to explain scenarios. When I always talk about scheme and play calls offensively and defensively, even when I do the film room, I always make sure people I outline different scenarios because we're not in the huddle. We're not in the install. You're never actually sure. But what he's thinking is that the safety is supposed to pick up the vertical there. I don't know how Jalen Mills gets there in time. And to your point, Joe, the great corners, when they see that there's nothing in the flat for them to do, they do go off script. They do break off and they go make those spectacular plays because if a quarterback's trying to hit a hole shot, and Richardson made a really good throw, sometimes those quarterbacks throw it short. And if you're a corner that could break off, you could actually get an interception off that. I see guys.
That's how Sauce intercepted Allen his rookie year. Right. He broke off. That's his last interception.
So and once again, to me, the body language is the bigger issue on it. It's frustrating. This team is not the pre-snap. And DJ Reed had a great post-game presser today. It's killing me that because I was one of those people for the last year. I'm like, Reed's going to walk. Like you can't pay everyone. You don't pay corners approaching 30, blah, blah, blah. But I want to make sure every time we get the chance, I give DJ Reed his flowers on this show because this is probably the end of his Jets career. And hopefully he goes somewhere and has a chance to win. DJ Reed gave the best post-game presser of anyone today. He was very thoughtful. He explained the situation at the end. He's like, listen, you got to play top down. He's like, you're going out on the field in that scenario. Everything has to be in front of you. And he really broke it down to the scrum saying like that can't happen to us because he's like, once you give up an explosive over the top, which is unacceptable in that scenario, that opens up the entire playbook for the offensive coordinator because they're not playing against time anymore. And if you're the Jets, you need to know as a unit. Anthony Richardson had a good game today. I want to make sure that's very clear. I thought he played really well. He was accurate. He made some plays with his legs. But in that scenario, you're going, okay, Anthony Richardson, we want you to have to make 9 throws on this drive to beat us. And if you make all 9 of those throws, you got us. Got us. But Anthony Richardson is a guy that historically, and I know the sample size is small, will show you that on 9 throws, he's not going to make 9 attempts. He's not going to make enough completions to get the job done in that scenario. And the Jets let him off the hook by allowing the big play, which is just it's unacceptable in so many ways. To Rodgers, I know everybody will look at it, and I even did this on postgame, and now that I'm kind of marinating on everything, because the Jets scored enough points to win today, right? But the reality is at its core, this offense is pretty gross all around. He's missing throws. We're at the point where he missed Garrett Wilson a few times today with really ugly, Zach Wilson level behind him kind of throws. And he's not taking chances. He's not pushing the ball. We say this every week. The offense is static. It's not a pretty offense. I thought today they did a good job sticking with Breece, and they were balanced, and that's why they were effective in the second half. And to your point about, it's kind of a shame that Breece's timeline might not line up with the rebuild of this eventual rebuild. But I look at Breece and go, man, like, you're going to pay him year 4. If you have to franchise tag him for years 5 and 6, and that's Breece's tenure here, so be it, because he is one of the difference makers on this team. And if there's something I want for the development of a young quarterback in the future, it's a running back that could change the game with any touch that he has, that simplifies the game for the quarterback. And that could be a dump off, that could be a screen, which they never throw him a screen. I also heard the broadcast say today, and once again, like, I'm assuming this is obviously true. They said when they sat down with Breece, he told them he's always the last look in the progressions, which I guess doesn't shock me because I get on this podcast and complain every week that they don't design him screens. But it is really insane when you think about the type of skill set he has. And it reminded me of Hackett last year after one of their games at the end of the year, where he was like, he basically said he didn't realize how good of a receiver he is. And we were looking around like, do you do anything here at all? So
still collecting a paycheck, by the way.
When they said that on the broadcast today, now with Downing calling things, it's just insane. I mean, it's absolutely insane. This is a poorly designed offense, and it's also a poorly run offense. And Rodgers didn't really have a good presser today either. I mean, after the game, I think if I heard correctly, one of the reporters asked him, are you shocked by this? And he said he wasn't going to answer it because that's a buzzword. And I'm like, okay, dude, we're at the point where, like, get a grip on reality. It's just, it's the classic, like, it's never, like, it's a buzzword.
Yeah.
Like, just answer.
This isn't a media thing.
It's not we're not creating riddles and mysteries for you. Like, are you shocked that this team is one of the biggest overachievers in the history of the organization? So, I mean, the reality is for the New York Jets right now, they are 3-8. The schedule, in my opinion, is not easy. I mean, everybody was talking about the back half of you got some hungry dogs on this schedule. Like, Seattle is going to be hungry. The Dolphins twice. They are fighting for their lives. Jacksonville stinks. The Rams, if you've watched the Rams play, the Rams are going to,
The Rams are a horrible matchup for the Jets. Stafford's going to throw for 500 yards.
They're going to take the Jets' lunch money. Yeah, they will take the Jets' lunch money, and they got the Bills the second to last week of the season, where the Bills are going to be playing for seeding after beating the Chiefs. There's a reality here where the Jets do finish with 4 wins this year and are picking.
Is that Cam Ward music, CR? Is it that time?
We'll get there. I'm scared of this quarterback class, but he is the one guy I like. I want to know who the hell is going to be running this organization, because right now it feels
that ain't going to be Joe Douglas. I can tell you that.
It's not going to be Joe Douglas. That ship has sailed. You also wonder, like, who's even going to be making these hires, but. Yeah, I mean, this was the story of the 2024 New York Jets, like the team that found ways to lose and never played a game where all 3 units can be humming at the same time. And I don't know, my last take here on this long-winded rant is just, I did a breakdown on pregame today of Rodgers and showing him missing the simple plays, and it kind of bled into this game, ironically, after that breakdown. And I just think physically he's not the guy anymore, where the mental is really not worth putting up with for the most part. In my opinion, he's not going to be amicable to a different offense. So don't even I can't waste my breath on saying, let's get somebody creative in here and he's not going to want to do that. And if you think any different, I don't think you know anything about Aaron Rodgers. And honestly, at this point, it might just be time to kind of get that feeling out of the room. It feels like guys are probably a little afraid to make a mistake, and he's not good enough where they should feel that way anymore. It's not the kind of good pressure like the Tom Brady has expectations. So if you don't like getting screamed at, get lost. Now it's at the point where it's like, well, Rodgers is making as much mistakes, if not more, than anyone else. Why should anybody feel this way? And if he's back next year, that'll be a larger conversation and discussion, and a questionable one for everybody. The dumbest argument that I want to put out there right now or eliminate out there is that he's the mentor for whoever they draft. You know who's the mentor for whoever they draft? Tyrod Taylor, because it comes with 1/10 of the baggage and 1/10 of the price. And it's just an easier way to go rather than Aaron Rodgers, who, let's be real, and I don't blame him for this, I don't think he's going to want anything to do with the future franchise franchise quarterback of the New York Jets. So I'm done entertaining that idea. They're either mistakenly and idiotically in on running this back next year and kicking the can of darkness even further down the road, or they're going to be adults and say, you know what, we tried this, it didn't work. Now we're going to have a top 5 pick, and that top 5, hopefully a smart person as president of football ops to hire a GM, a head coach to adequately use this top 5 pick and get the most out of the pieces that are already here.
Can of Darkness. That may be the name of our offseason docuseries. Actually, we've been batting them around. Can of Darkness is not bad. I'm putting it in contention. I think the hardest thing for me is like, I get the on-field argument that could a version of Rodgers be your best option on field in a lot of different scenarios if he can settle into a different phase? Maybe. The thing that I think you can't overcome is that if he's on the team, he's the center of the universe. He's the center of the team. Does that hold back other younger players or other parts of the team from stepping into the leadership roles that they need to? Because it's all about Rodgers if he's here. And I get that. He's the quarterback. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a big personality in his own way. If he's here, he's the center of the team. And it's the Aaron Rodgers team. It's not the Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson team. It's not the new quarterback drafted team. It's not the Quinnen Williams team. It's not the new head coach team. If they hire a guy with a big personality like a Rex back in the day, or like whatever their next version of it is. It's the Rodgers show. And if the on-field product is so conservative and dull to watch, which kind of sucks too. Rodgers has always been so much fun to watch, right? The improvisation, the attacking down the field. He's just boring to watch now, right? It's catch release. The 6-yard telegraphed hitch route to Garrett on 3rd and 5 when Devontae is wide open. The lack of a post route, a deep corner, anything down the field. It's very easy to defend. They play in that 5-yard horizontal box, and it's tough. And look, they still managed to put up 27 points today, and that's because Breece played his ass off. Devontae ran well after the catch. A couple things broke their way. They made a 58-yard field goal again, which I'm still shocked by.
Had a few takeaways.
Had a takeaway finally. Of course, not an interception, but had a takeaway. And
2 interceptions this year, right? The whole year?
Yeah,
2?
all both by Brandon Eccles. And you look at, you just look at the remaining games, and it's like, all right, now Seahawks are playing for their lives, Rams are playing for their lives, Dolphins are playing for their lives, Bills are playing for their lives.
Hungry dogs.
This is probably a 4-13 type season, which again lines up to this being very 2016, which means next year is the 2017 where you get sort of the bridge quarterback year. That was McCown for the Jets back then. Maybe he ends up being their offensive coordinator. How ironic that would be. But that's kind of where you're at right now. And I'm glad. I mean, I feel like, and I'm recording with Hughes tomorrow on the SNY bit, but I feel like there's some win now about Rodgers playing next year, but not playing for the Jets. And do we get like a Favre situation here where it's like, he's going to play, but he's not going to play here because the Jets are going to be a rebuilding team next year and he wants to try to win. So is there another team, I don't know who it is off the top of my head, who wants to roll the dice in a 1-year scenario with him? It's not out of the question. It happened after, the Favre situation. Now he played 2 years, I think, with the Vikings. 1 year went really well. The other year ended up being a disaster. I'm curious if that ends up being it, where Rodgers doesn't want to end this way, but he doesn't want to be part of the Aaron Glenn, Josh McCown, you name it, Jets next year, because it's a whole new thing. And he's just left over from the previous regime. And it's starting to get reported more, but it's been painfully obvious, and we've been discussing this for a while, that Joe Douglas isn't working here anymore. He's here in name, like Hackett's here in name, but he's not working here anymore, right? He's on to figuring out who's going to hook him up with his next job. The Jets know they're getting a new general manager. We'll have an entire offseason thing we're going to do about this era. You could save your breath on the Douglas arguments. He's 30 and 64. He's Matt Millen. He'll be remembered as Matt Millen, and his era will be meshed together with McCagnon's 4 years and remembered as 10 years of a complete abyss after John Idzik, with the only winning season coming under McCagnon. So you do all the qualifiers, you do whatever you want. He's 30 and 64. He's probably going to finish about 31 and 69, which is an incredibly long leash and is a degree of incompetence that is going to require a standalone 6-hour documentary to really dig into, because there's so many little things around the margins that I think we forget to discuss when you just look at recent draft picks. Is he contributing? Is Carter Warren contributing? Is Max Mitchell contributing? Is Corley contributing? Allen's not contributing anymore. Isaiah Davis, do they need that pick? You just kind of go through them and you're like, where are these these little roster things that are stack up? And the game's on the line and they're throwing to Gibson and Ruckert. And Gibson and Ruckert kind of stink, and they shouldn't be playing on offense. And it's like, what are we doing here? Kenny Yeboah is catching touchdowns for them. That's their tight end room right now. Good for Yeboah. We like Yeboah. I'm happy he got a touchdown today. But I do think, and we're guilty of this too, myself especially, like this roster is not as talented as it's made out to be. You just have to look at the snap counts after any game. Like look who's playing. Look who's playing on the defensive line and at linebacker and at safety, and even at like tight end and receiver. Like they're really not that talented. They should be better than 3-8 if they were coached better, but they'd be like a phantom 5-6 that was about to get hit with a Mack truck out of the bye week. So that's kind of where I leave it. What are your sort of, before we land the plane on this one, because we're back in the booth in 24 hours with our good friend Hanses to really vent it out on the big picture stuff.
It's going to be a doozy.
It's going to be a fun one. What are your thoughts on the bigger picture stuff about Douglas and Rodgers that's starting to leak out, and I feel like is not by accident?
Well, I think obviously everybody in these, when the ship starts taking on water, everybody through their, like in their mind starts to think of their escape plan, right?
Yep.
Out loud, everybody might be like, no, we're going to stay here and like take the buckets and get the water out. And then, but deep down, human nature is everybody starts to think like, okay, when this all goes to hell, like what's the best thing for me? So it feels like Joe Douglas probably knows this is the end, I would imagine. And Rodgers is a really weird one because I don't know where he would go after this. And I think he's smart enough to have the awareness of he's not going to be a hot commodity after this. Like this isn't one of those things where I think teams are going to look around and go, oh no, like that was the Jets' fault. Rodgers is a 41-year-old, soon to be, who tore his Achilles late in his career, an injury that you might never be the same when you come back from that. And guess what? Like he's really, really old right now. And on top of that, you know, love him or hate him, a lot of people don't feel like dealing with his shit when things go wrong. So I think Rodgers eventually will, because he's, say what you want about him, like he is very
smart and self-aware, I feel like.
Self-aware, right, there you go. Like at times very self-aware, and strategic is the word I was looking for. I don't know why it took me so long to get there. If he comes to that realization, then he might start to think like, okay, if he wants to play, that he needs to talk Christopher Johnson into like, hey, give us one more shot at this, even though you're going to hire your own people. The problem you create with that is, even when you look back at Green Bay, when they hired LaFleur, and this is me from afar, but I feel like I follow the NFL widely, like closely enough, big picture wise, especially how much work I do at the draft, that I always know enough about every team. It feels like he didn't really want to buy into a lot of what LaFleur wanted to do eventually. Yeah. And LaFleur's a great coach. I mean, he's a great coach. Yeah. So why would you think that even if you run the risk of Rodgers talking Christopher and Woody, but Woody's leaving, so whatever. And it sounds like his relationship is with Christopher into running this back. So then you need to figure out the money with Devontae, which, hint, hint, is really just going to be a lot more money down the road that you're going to owe. And then
bucket of darkness. Like can of darkness.
You're running up a tab. And Joe Douglas already did this. That's why you're paying the likes of CJ Uzomah and Carl Lawson and all these people. You're running up a tab for the future, right? It's an ugly bill. It's a really ugly long line of credit. So then you're running that risk. Then you're also running the risk of, say they hire a coach separately from Rodgers' thoughts, but Rodgers doesn't really buy into that. So you're going to create a potentially divisive and toxic place for a new head coach and GM where, yes, after year one, you can get all those guys out, but then you're already a year behind and you're paying the credit line of all these guys that were in on the last year of the Rodgers plan. So we say this all the time on this podcast. No half measures. There's nothing good that ever comes out of half measures. And the reality is the Jets need to do what's best for them in this scenario. And what's best for them is moving on from Joe Douglas, which clearly, by the leaks and the feel of everything, and even his press conference, his last, I don't know,
his press conversation. It was about 3 minutes. I gave to call it a conference.
Yeah, it was very clear. Like, I just serve here. He's out. And then Rodgers, I think Rodgers just doesn't have a lot of ways to go. So he has to kind of play this a little cooler, where Douglas will probably be back in the front office role in Baltimore or Philadelphia, or very comfortable. He's made millions and millions of dollars for over half of a decade doing this and drafting poorly and making bad moves and all of that and having a horrible record. So, I think that's where it's at right now, is that I'd say Douglas has let go, but Rodgers is kind of holding on for dear life. And I hope there's an adult in the room that looks at Woody and Christopher and is like, listen, guys, like, you're not going to like ripping this Band-Aid off because it is going to hurt. And you're going to kind of let out a little bit of a yelp, but it's the best thing rather than just letting this fester. And I'm curious if they're going to have the people in there that, one, have the fortitude and confidence to tell them what they don't want to hear. And two, most importantly, if they ultimately listen, which I think they will, because there's just no other logic applied to this. But there's a reason we're having the conversation about it. It's not a lock.
Yeah. I mean, look, I do think, and I've said there's still 6 games left, which is an alarming amount to have to suffer through. But
I don't know how.
There's a difference in them going 4-13 and like 6-11 or 7-10, right? I do feel like if they win a couple games and Rodgers has some moments, it's an easier sales pitch internally. Subconsciously and consciously, that like we do this and maybe it'll be better next year. If the bottom really falls out, which after they lost today and you look at the remaining schedule and you just look at everything, it's an easier thing. Like if the Jets close by losing like 8 of their last 10 and they're picking 4th in the draft, it just feels like a little easier to like take that jump off the ledge and like really like start over, because it's a different world if you're just losing out in December and January and you're picking in the top 5 versus picking like 12th or something and being like, well, we split with the Dolphins and like we beat the Jags and like we should have beat the Colts, and like it's a different conversation. So it makes it challenging as a fan to figure out like what you're really rooting for. I was rooting for them to win today. I'm just exhausted of rooting for them to lose. I've done it too much in my life. And I like a lot of the young players, and like I'm just tired of watching losses. But
there's no savior. There's no one in this class is billed as a there's no like Trevor Lawrence prospect, and how things have gone for him show you how the draft goes. That I think that's kept people more in this season than ever. Is we're gonna get some. Take it from me, I do the draft all the time, Joe, and it's like, I don't have the answer for you who's coming to save this franchise right now.
Yeah. It's not like other years. And look, like at least you're in the phase where it's like if they lose, it's like now especially it's like, all right, like there's some silver lining to actually losing some of these games. And again, how you root, how we root, how you roll root out there, it doesn't obviously impact what happens. But yeah, again, another shitty day for the home fan. At least it was a nice day out. We got good weather. So for the people who were out there, and it was an entertaining game. There were points. It's not like they got ran off the field, but it's a shame that's where we're at now. So, like I said, Connor and I are going to record tomorrow night with Dan. We'll drop War Room Tuesday morning. We'll have our normal pod hit Wednesday. Obviously, we're in the bye week, but we'll still have Flight Plan, other guys, Buck the Trend, TOJ Talks. I'll have some version of the 12-pack, and then we'll be getting ready for Jets Seahawks. But normal flow. And as I've said, we're in the early days of putting together basically the version of what we did to launch this entire thing. Just a different, like the part 2 of it, I will say. So we're excited about that, and that will launch before the league year starts. It's early days, but an exciting thing we're looking forward to. So you could gift people on Patreon now. So for Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, hand out those Patreon memberships, and we're going to explain everything that went wrong here. But look, a shitty and frustrating loss today. Very similar to how they lost the Patriots game. Very similar to how they lost a lot of other games this year. So it's hard to say it's surprising. This one was particularly annoying because this game felt in hand at 24-16. And we could have been on here saying, like, this is a really nice Brees game and a Quinnen game. And, like, they're 4-7. Yeah. They're still out of it. But it's like they can't even do that right, which is, again, maybe for the best that they're not teasing or fooling anybody. But it sucks to watch such bad, uninspired football, especially from the guys who are supposed to be the faces of the franchise. That's how I'll leave it. And I'm relieved they're on a bye week. They need a bye week.
Well, everybody needs it. The show needs it.
Yeah. It's
tough, man. Like I know we get on here and we're kind of, it feels like you and I just kind of throw complete gasoline into fire every week. But there is a side of it where it stinks. Like I feel bad for the fans. I feel bad for a lot of guys in the locker room and around the organization that have tried. And these scenarios are brutal, man. Like they're really brutal. And there is a side to it where you just shake your head and you know, how did this happen? And the reality is you can't feel sorry for yourself in this scenario. You could go, I know the hot combo is like, oh, why would your kids be Jets fans? Like, well, it's a whole other combo for another day, but I don't know. I think there's no curse on the Jets, right? There's no curse on the Jets or anything like that. The Jets have just made bad decisions and overlook the object of winning football games too often. And ultimately, this is kind of the bed they're in, and the best way out of it. Like, do you think this is probably what Lions fans sounded like for 20, 30 years, whatever it was. And you found a way out of it by building a physical smash mouth football team with a leader that you know, sets guys up for success and built a staff. And it's there, you know, that wasn't a curse. It was just that the Lions did all the right football decisions going forward. And the Jets, they need to get it right. And it's easier said than done, but we'll be here for the full ride. That's for sure.
That is for sure. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Great chatter on the Discord today, as always. Also, shout out Kevin getting the Badlands hat on national TV.
Oh, so good.
Awesome.
A bright spot in the dark day.
A very bright spot. We were very happy to see that. So we really appreciate that. That was a cool moment. Appreciate all of you out there. And we'll be back very soon in this very booth. So thank you everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.